Welcome to another edition of Tubi Horror Tuesdays here on House of Shadows and Ink. I am your host, Kevin Lucia, and I have two things to apologize for this week. One, I apologize for the iffy camera quality. My phone is dying. But, good news, brand new spanking camera is on its way, so hopefully the next time you see me, it'll be in sparkling high def. Two, I apologize for missing last week because I was out for several days. I caught the cold of death. I was pretty much crashed on the couch. But the good thing for you is I was crashed in front of Tubi. So that's just more movies for us to talk about. One last thing I'd like to talk about before we get started. What I'd like to do with this show is start giving away free books to people who comment. The next episode we have, the first two people who comment with suggestions of random Tubi horror movies for me to watch. I don't care how bad. I'll watch anything. Those two commenters will get a signed copy of my latest Caretaker of the Dead. If you're familiar with my work, most of my work takes place in a small haunted town in the Adirondacks. Caretaker of the Dead is about how a new mortician has come to this town, and he finds that here, the dead don't lie easy. So yes, the first two commenters, next video, two random horror movies from Tubi that I should watch, you will get free signed copies of Caretaker of the Dead. Why don't we just jump right in? The first movie is Sacrilege. Now, it's kind of funny with horror movies. You either make two assumptions. One, this movie is taking place in a universe where not that many people have seen horror movies. We don't have any characters that are horror experts. Or two, in a more meta film, this film is taking place in a world where everyone's seen horror movies and everyone knows the rules. So then they can subvert them. I always think about that. Because have you ever watched a horror movie and you're like, oh man, if you'd only seen The Exorcist, you would have known that was going to be a bad idea. It happens to me all the time. And with Sacrilege, that kind of happened to me a little bit as well. So Sacrilege is a nice folk horror. I'm going to be honest, I can't remember if it takes place in Ireland or Britain. But these four young girls are going out to a deserted lodge out in the middle of nowhere to kind of get away and relax and maybe party a little. They meet a local guy, and the local guy's like, if you want to party, the local pagans here party like crazy. They got the best weed and the best booze, so you guys should come. So, sure enough, they go to the ritual. And then I'm thinking to myself, if only they had seen Midsommar. But apparently, they haven't seen Midsommar. They go to the pagan ritual, and of course, the very beginning of it is a little weird for them. They're just kind of sitting on a bench waiting for the praying and chanting to get done. Then, the praying and the chanting finishes, and it's time for the festivities, with indeed booze and weed. And everyone starts having fun and clothes go flying. But of course, there's that classic character who comes right up to the bench before the festivities, an old lady who tells the girls, leave while you still can. And of course, then the weird, creepy, pagan priest or whatever comes over and offers them some booze and weed and, so forth. In some ways, this is a film we've seen before, especially if you're into folk horror and you've seen a lot of folk horror. Naive, contemporary, sophisticated people stumble into ancient rituals they know nothing about, and they don't realize the danger that they're in. And that's certainly what's happening here. But it's a good enough film. It's entertaining. Some good special effects, some good acting. There was some good tension there. So even though it may not necessarily be anything we haven't seen before, I do recommend Sacrilege. Our next movie is Beacon 77. Now, Beacon 77 I really enjoyed. Although, I sometimes wasn't sure if I was watching a horror movie or a Dan Brown religious thriller. Because it kind of has those vibes. Because we have a hacker group that, of course, is devoted to turning the world upside down and exposing the lies and hypocrisy and all that sort of stuff. Well, they've decided to hack their biggest target yet. The Vatican. And that's where they hold, is this a horror or is this a religious thriller? So they hack the Vatican and uncover two things. One, a computer program that runs on a mysterious Bible code that supposedly can predict the future. 2, they unlocked something else that might have been imprisoned in the Vatican's cyberspace, and now it is out to run amok and cause chaos and destruction. It's a good film. Very, very enjoyable. I wasn't sure what they were hacking into in the Vatican, so that was kind of a nice surprise when all that happened. But it was a fun film. Fun film. So, Beacon 77. Our next film is The Demoness. In The Demoness, a group of burned out, bored, jaded, what have you, married couples come to a remote island for an erotic retreat, kind of like an Eyes Wide Shut type thing, to spice up their marriage. What they don't realize is this whole thing is being run by a succubus. Give me that energy, folks. And of course, because it's a succubus, there's all sorts of supernatural things going on. Like, this retreat is like advocating partner swapping and things like that to return a sense of danger to their relationships and their love. But of course, the people aren't swapping with other people. They're swapping with the demoness, who is like hiding disguised as other people. Once we get to that reveal, we kind of know where it's going from here. And I have a little bit of a quibble with the ending. I'll let you watch it and see if you have the same quibble. In fact, that's something else that I would like to do here on this show. I'd like to start giving stuff away for free. It would be really cool if we could start having people who would drop comments and tell me what they thought about certain endings. And if they drop a comment, I'm going to send you a free book. So maybe we'll start doing that. Anyway, The Demoness. It's also called Succubus, but at least The Demoness leaves a little wiggle room there for a surprise. My next film is Glamping, a Tubi original. It's about a disgraced social media influencer. She made a bad suggestion to a fellow social media influencer with some skin cream that kind of burned her face. Now everyone hates her. All her followers think she's the worst person in the world. So she's invited all of her friends to go glamping, like in a nice lodge, to kind of try to bring her followers back, like a special weekend experience. Keep in mind, though, I'm not going to tell you anything more about this story. Keep in mind that our social media influencer will do anything to get her followers back and to regain her notoriety. And as it happens, there's a masked killer lurking around the lodge. It's a fun movie, and I gotta be honest, I wasn't expecting the ending. And there are a lot of people, I think, who complain about these horror movies, about social media. I remember during COVID, when the first social media movies were coming out, and like the movies about Zooming and things like that, and people were, you know what, horror is doing what it always does. It always has done. It's commenting on our society, either on the ills of our society, or the dangers of our society, or this is something we should consider. And Glamping, front and center, the shallowness of being a media influencer and how that can be addicting, that's definitely a big part of that movie. But it's an excellent movie. Glamping. My next movie is Don't Log Off. Now, this is set during the COVID era. It wasn't shot during the COVID era. It was set during the COVID era about a bunch of friends that all have to quarantine, and they're getting online to meet, like on Zoom or something like that, to wish their one friend happy birthday. And they deliver her cupcakes. So when she gets up all excited to go out to the front door to get the cupcakes, she never comes back to the computer. Even more, they find that she was lying about what she was. She put up a fake background of her being home at her parents' house, and they call her parents and realize she's not there. Where is she? What happened to her? Why did she lie about where she is? This was a good film, and it has a surprisingly uplifting ending. It's the type of film that I probably wouldn't have watched during COVID because it would have been a little too close. But we've got this distance now after COVID, so it's definitely, it's a little easier to watch, I think. But don't log off. Another good film. My final film is Demon Eyes. It's about a young girl who's inherited her father's house because he slipped in the bathtub and died. Or did he slip? And she discovers a legend about a cursed necklace that will give the owner their greatest desire at a great price. Again, a pretty classic tried and true tale. Be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. And what's the cost of that wish? So, as you can imagine, a lot of that stuff happens. We do end up finding the necklace, and our protagonist is tempted by its powers and whatnot. And yes, people get their wishes, and they pay the price for them as well. Again, a pretty fun movie. So, those are my roundups for this week. Glamping, don't log off. The Demoness, Beacon, 77, Demon Eyes, and last but not least, Sacrilege. Remember, comment. The first 2 people to comment about a random Tubi horror movie for me to watch will receive a free signed copy of Caretaker of the Dead. Until then, folks, get on Tubi and get viewing.